You know what we're missing, Cease?
What are we missing, Mace?
Music.
Ah, yes.
Let's rock out.
Orange and blue today, Friday.
Or is it Friday?
It's Bo Day. Every day is a Bo Day.
Is it? Feels like today might be a Zach Wilson day.
Zach Friday. Freaky Friday.
Zaction packed.
Real freaking naughty.
Oh my gosh.
All right, at your leisure, make sure to shut the music off. And we'll get this thing going. Yeah, it's all good.
Can you tell? This is my first time running StreamYard. Because usually I just do the clip. So like this is do I have to take the slide off?
Yeah, take the slide off.
There we go. Wait, I took it off and it went back on. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know. But it's exciting and new.
There we go.
It is orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew
Orange
Mason.
and blue today. See? It's orange and blue today.
There you go. Yeah, and you can even shut my mic off now, Mace, that you're running the show. So
hopefully you don't do that anytime.
Well, either way, Zach Wilson not shutting off his chances at the number 2 spot on Sunday.
He's not shutting them off. I think the real question becomes, okay, is it going to be 3 quarterbacks no matter what? Because I got to say, Cease, listening to Sean Payton today, it does sound like it's 3 quarterbacks on the roster no matter what.
Oh, yeah. You know, what did he tell us? Because us and Parker's our guy, man. Like us and Chris Thomason, we're like boys. And then Parker's like our boy. It's our crew. We're crewing up. And as we're walking out, he's like, we're talking about Sean saying like, I'm not going to reveal anything. Totally keeping 3 quarterbacks. Like he didn't say it officially, but it sure seems like that. But the pecking order may change based on what we see with a lot of Zach Wilson against the Cardinals.
Well, let's start right there. First thing that Sean Payton said today about the quarterbacks and which ones might be available and how he's going to disperse the playing time, because this doesn't sound like 50-50 between Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson on Sunday.
From a quarterback rotation, you'll see Stidham, with the first series or so, I'd like to see him get 8 to 12.
Oops.
From a quarterback rotation, you'll see Stidham, with the first series or so, I'd like to see him get 8 to 12 plays, and then we'll get a lot of work with Zach at some point in that first or early second quarter.
Yeah.
By the way, I learned something. If I accidentally brush the keyboard here, all of a sudden it stops the clip. That's what happened. So my apologies.
Be very careful. But 8 to 12, Mace, that's like a drive for 2. I mean, literally a first quarter, basically, is what Sean Payton's saying.
Yeah, which means Zach Wilson gets about 3 quarters of the game. And this is where, and I've seen this comment come up on social media, the one from Jesus here, Zach is trade bait. Because if you're spotlighting him like this, doesn't this have some air of Albert Okwuegbunam last year?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, Mace, honestly, I'd like him to keep a hold of him. You have until the trade deadline. I think this is a way to showcase it. And then 60 plus quarterbacks played last year. Somebody's going to need a quarterback. So the need in August may be much less than the need as we get towards October.
Exactly. And the other thing that you have to consider, like on the quarterbacks here, is if you hang on to 3, it's going to compromise what you can do elsewhere. You have to go one short at another position.
Right.
But if, let's say you hang on to 2, let's say for a moment, for Zach Wilson, first of all, could you trade him? Yes. Remember, Sean Payton had the comment that he shared with Chase Daniel and Diana Rossini last week that his goal was to make him millions, whether it was here or elsewhere. Right?
Yep.
But I think it's more likely that elsewhere is next year in free agency, Sam Darnold style. After a year incubating and then getting a shot at least to be a bridge to a younger quarterback, or going to a team that maybe isn't in position to draft a quarterback next year, but isn't going to be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes if Dak Prescott becomes available. So I think that's more likely than a trade. I don't think the Broncos would pull the trigger on a trade right now, but then the question is, okay, could you slip Jarrett Wilson to the practice squad because he doesn't have to pass through waivers? It's possible because he's not subject to the waiver process, so you could do the thing where you bring him back a day later like Mike Purcell on the same contract terms. They've done that in previous years. But here's the thing. Jarrett Stidham may look at the landscape and say, there might be another situation better. I mean, we just saw a team in here last week, the Green Bay Packers. Sean Clifford, Michael Pratt. Jarrett Stidham is objectively better than both of those quarterbacks.
No doubt.
Green Bay could upgrade its QB2 situation if Jarrett Stidham were available by bringing Stidham in.
Right.
So if you cut him, don't instantly expect him to come back, is what I'm saying. If you really value having all three and each of them having a specific purpose, maybe Jarrett is more the guy who's, in Bo Nix's ear. He's the one who's kind of a de facto coach for Nix on the sideline, whereas Wilson's the guy that maybe you're just seeing where he goes, and he is your relief arrow in the quiver if Bo Nix does not launch as a quarterback, to see where he might go. They would all very much have very specific roles and places, and that's why I think the Broncos would prefer to keep all three. Let's be honest.
And part of the reason why they had and needed to have this competition, Mace, it's for the locker room, but it's also for Stidham. Like, hey, Jarrett, you had your shot. We gave you your shot. They gave him a fair shot. So now he can't say like, oh, I'm out of here because they gave it to the first rounder. He might say that anyway, but like he knows that he was beat out. He was beat out by the better quarterback. So maybe that makes him stick around because he likes it here. Guys like him. Sean Payton likes him.
Yeah. And it's possible that if the goal was to make Zach Wilson millions either here or elsewhere, then are you looking at a situation where Zach moves on, but in the next offseason, and Jarrett Stidham maybe accepts his role as a number 2 quarterback, and maybe he goes into Chase Daniel mode and signs like another 2-year, $10 million deal, and accepts that he's a backup quarterback. And if you accept that, if you wrap your arms around it as a competitor and accept being a number 2, well, you can laugh all the way to the bank.
Oh, yeah. You can play a long time. Now, on Wednesday, we'll make an assumption, Mace, so perhaps this is unfair. But with Jarrett Stidham, on that day being the third of 3 quarterbacks in terms of performance, do you think maybe that was the day where it's like his shot as a starter is kind of done? His shot to be a starter, especially to begin the regular season, it's kind of done. So I don't want to get in his head. I don't want to make too wild of an assumption, but it would make sense based on how we saw him play that was the day he went like, okay, I'm a backup.
Yes. Acceptance.
Yes.
Now, it was interesting last week. I thought Jarrett Stidham looked really frustrated coming off of Bo Nix stepping in and playing well. And that was the moment you knew the writing was on the wall. And that was when Sean Payton was saying his thing, about how the band is playing and all that. There's another tune to play, another week to go.
It's not over yet. Nothing is over. Nothing.
Nothing is over until we say it's over. Mike Naylor suggests maybe we trade a quarterback to Pittsburgh. They need a quarterback. Oh, hey, Mike, you got jokes.
Yeah,
unfortunately, meatball. Yeah, you know what we need here in the on the back end is we need a rim shot gif.
Okay, we could get
that. I'll have to find that.
Find something, put it in there. Enjoy until your heart's content.
Because I don't think that line, Mike, deserves this.
It's close. It's close. I thought that might be the one. That might be the one. But either way.
Oh my goodness. Speaking of this, you were on the radio today. How'd it go?
DMC, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was good. Still got energy. I'll tell you this, Mace. I won't be worth dog crap on Denver sports tonight.
This doesn't mean you shouldn't listen. It's just
exactly right.
Consider yourself forewarned here about what Cecil will have left.
Well, and it was a walkthrough today, basically, right? I mean, is that how you would describe it? So we can take stuff that we saw Wednesday. We can take stuff we saw Thursday. Today, it was kind of prep for the Cardinals, lighter pace a little bit. So I could have
otherwise known as a highly strenuous practice during the Nathaniel Hackett era.
Oh, yeah. Hackett, that would have been a tremendous day. What a great day of practice. Today, it was just kind of, okay, getting ready for Arizona and getting ready to see if Zach Wilson can elevate to that. They're keeping 3, but let's see if and the rules to keep 3 now are another reason why they're keeping 3.
And let's talk about that because Sean Payton did get into that today.
I think we've studied 14 last year, the 32 teams, just under half the league. And I know the rule recently changed where if, in fact, you do, this came after the 49ers-Eagles game, that third comes up without any count, and so, but ultimately, I think most importantly, you're really looking at your assets when we make that decision.
14 teams had 3 quarterbacks.
Yes. And of course, what he was referring to with the Eagles 49ers game, the genesis of this was that NFC Championship game back in January of 2023 when Philadelphia won, but the Niners had, the injuries at quarterbacks, and for a moment it looked like they'd have to, who were they talking about having a quarterback at?
Wasn't it Christian McCaffrey who's going to play quarterback?
Yeah, like was going to take some snaps. Like they were in a bind, and so now you have the flexibility. If you've got a third quarterback on the roster, that and it's what used to exist. Remember, for a long time, you could have like 45 active players in the third quarterback. And if you put that third quarterback in the first 3 quarters, you couldn't go back to the other quarterbacks. It came up rarely in a game, but effectively now that's what you have, right? Is like you have that third quarterback that can step in on an emergency basis if the first 2 go down.
Right. Not everyone has a Brian Mitchell anymore, Mace. There's a blast from the past.
Well, if you only had 2 quarterbacks in uniform and you didn't have the emergency number 3, my guess is the Riley Dixon.
Yep.
Because he can throw. Now, the thing is he doesn't know the offense, but he's been a quarterback.
Right.
Back in high school. See, that's the problem. I actually think because Riley Dixon might be, you might rely on him to throw. Maybe you could just give him a couple of plays, that kind of thing. But somebody like Jaleel McLaughlin would actually have a better chance of running the offense because he knows the offense.
Right.
But can he throw? That's the thing.
Court can throw. If I've just going back through my head of guys that can kind of wing it, Court would be pretty cool. Like, didn't he do a trick play where he threw a touchdown to Emmanuel? It's my memory.
I believe it was against there was I think the Arizona 2018, if I recall correctly. Okay. But maybe it was. There was also a pass that he was involved in. I think it was 2019 against Minnesota, right?
I can't remember. I just remember I thought there was a connection with him and Emmanuel where like it was the SMU hookup. But either way, you've got options, but now it's nice to have a third option. And it's one of the reasons why they'll do that. Yes,
and he did. So he actually has. So 2018, he was on the receiving end. Courtland Sutton for his career, 2 for 2, 54 yards. Passer rating of 118.7. No touchdowns, but no picks either.
Yeah, it's important.
That's a saucy little 27 yards per carry average. I'll take that.
I need to see your hands, Mace, because I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to Google it. Okay? Jazz hands. Number 1 player in the NFL history, non-quarterback, that has the most touchdown passes. My favorite player of all time.
Walter Payton.
Yep.
The halfback option pass in Chicago was very much a thing when he was there.
Yes. Yeah. Bring it back.
You know who could have done that, although it would have been a receiver? Rod Smith was a college quarterback.
He was. Yep.
At Missouri Southern.
Yep. It's good to have those guys around, man, just in case. But now you can have Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham around just in case.
Good to have those guys around. As Edwards says, versatility is an extra string to a player's bow. I like that. Gage points out Dixon has completions in his career. Yeah, remember back in Tennessee back in 2016? Mm-hmm. That was Cody Latimer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, very good. And you think Dixon wins this thing, right? If we get a little hot punter talk in here?
Yeah, let's work that in real quick. I mean, I asked Ben Katwika yesterday about weighing the games versus practices, because practices on balance, they've been pretty close. Frankly, Trenton Gill has usually had the best single punt of every day. Riley Dixon more consistent. And then you get to last Sunday, Dixon definitely more consistent. I mean, Gill had one that was an outright shank, and I was like, oh, well, there goes his chances. So,
right.
But, we'll see. Holding matters as well, and I think Riley Dixon's probably a more trusted holder at this point than Trenton Gill, but we're fixing to find out, as Gary Kubiak would say.
And competition will abound in this Sunday game. Guys are playing for jobs, roster spots, and even careers in some point.
Yes. We've said it before. We don't know who they are, but there's going to be at least one player out there who's playing the final football game of their life on Sunday. That the football life ends here. Don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Now, it's not as many as used to be, because you've got obviously the CFL, but now you have the UFL as well.
Right.
So inevitably you'll probably look at a roster of like the Birmingham Stallions or the Saskatchewan Rough Riders in a year or two, and you're going to see names from this game.
Yeah. And you can find your way back or find your way into the league, as Dondrea Tillman did with the Denver Broncos. So like if we look at, our Thomas and Coombs, or Dondrea Tillmans, Elijah Garcia. Like there's so many guys that are fighting for roster. Practice squad is going to be fine. Practice squad is practice squad. But like you want to make that 53, and there's talent, and boy, there's not enough spots.
It's a good problem to have. I mean, there's a squeeze at edge rusher right now. Do you keep 5 or do you keep just 4? And if you keep 5, who's the 5th one, Incoom or Tillman? I mean, Incoom got off to a really good start the first couple of weeks of training camp. He has tailed off since we got into the preseason gameplay. There's a dude who really could use a big game on Sunday.
Right.
I think Incoom's one of those players that if he has a big game, I think he can make this team. If he gets a sack, a couple of QB hits, then I think we are talking about him sticking on the 53. And maybe today he's, maybe on the bubble, not just with players at his position, but players at other positions as well. I mean, take inside linebacker. You go Cody Barton, you go Alex Singleton, you go Jonas Griffith, Justin Sternad for special teams. Are you going with 5 there and keeping Lavelle Bailey, or are you trying to slip Lavelle Bailey through the practice squad?
Based on what he's done in camp, I'm keeping Lavelle Bailey.
I think so it might come down to a Incoom versus Bailey, or Incoom, Bailey, Tillman for 2 spots on the back end of the roster. These are the decisions that the Broncos. I don't think they've made that decision. That all the decisions, like Sean Payton said, a little while ago, about late last week, he said it's down to about 61 for 53. Probably today we're talking about 58 for 53 or thereabouts that are left. He didn't say that. I'm just wagering a guess. I don't think one of the guys in doubt is Zach Wilson. And here's what offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi had to say Thursday about just how Wilson has come along in some of his technique.
Yeah, I think, he throws the ball really well. And I think the consistency of how he throws the football, I think he's just, as he gets more comfortable with the receivers and what we're doing, his accuracy has really improved. And he's really, this week, I think he was disappointed in the game he had on Sunday, but man, he's had 2, whatever it's been, outstanding practices since that game, and really made half a dozen just throws that are really impressive and surprising, that we all look at each other after he threw it.
Yeah, he made throws on that day, specifically, Mace, that he wasn't making 3 weeks ago.
Yes. The progress is palpable with Zach Wilson.
Yeah, and the physical skill we saw from day one, it was just really, really rough. And those rough edges have been smoothed out a bit more. I'm not saying he's a finished product, but it looks better.
It looks better. Here's what Sean Payton had to say more about Zach Wilson and the playing time in the offing for him.
Well, I think the first thing is it'll give him an opportunity, maybe, well, I know it will, with the second group, and so often it's hard to evaluate that position if the other elements aren't working, and so just watching him really follow up the week he's had in practice and take it to the game and run the huddle and just seeing him play.
See him out there, watch him play, man.
Running the huddle. Like he's basically, this is another thing. When he talks about that, it's more than just the, raw arm talent. It's about how he's learning the offense and how he's able to conduct it. Let me ask you this. Is there a scenario where they all three make it and Zach Wilson is QB2 and Stidham is QB3?
Yes, because here's the reason why. And maybe not at the beginning of the season, Mace. It could end up being that later on. And here's my thought behind that. Let's say they're pushing for a playoff spot. Okay? Sounds outrageous, whatever. But let's say they're in there and they got through the gauntlet of November.
Well, I think the first thing is it'll give.
And they need a game. That's okay. They need
Laid
a
on
game.
the space bar here.
Right. They need a game. Let's say I'll look at a game specifically. Let's say it's week 15, coming out of the bye. Bo Nix a little bit banged up going into the bye, so they're like, oh, Bo's got to miss a week. It's week 15 against the Colts.
Okay.
Might be Joe Flacco. Might not be Anthony Richardson, by the way.
Hey,
Richardson.
what if the return to Denver we get this year isn't Russell Wilson, but Joe Flacco?
Exactly. Right. So let's say they need to win. You got to keep your playoff hopes alive. You need this game. Stidham's safe. He's a nice backup. But you need that extra punch that only Zach Wilson can bring in those two. Stidham can't make the throws that Wilson can make. So he might be your number 2 eventually, if it is not here in September.
Yeah. Eventually, I think that's a potential likelihood. The question is week 1, and that's where coaches, they tend to get a little bit more conservative in terms of what they do the closer they get to an actual game. It's having Zach Wilson be your number 2. That's well and good. It sounds great here on August 23rd. Does it sound the same to Sean Payton on September the 8th in Seattle? That's the question. You might get a little bit nervous about the notion of, I could have one guy here who's got a jersey, and he's been in my scheme for a year, or I could have 2 guys who are both new to it. That's and the prudence may get the better of Sean Payton there, I think. Yeah. Early. But you might be talking about a different decision in October or November as Zach Wilson gets more comfortable. And one of them will be running the scout team, and whoever the QB3 is running the scout team. And this is another thing. You may want to get Zach Wilson QB3 reps on scout team just to get him going. And then Jarrett Stidham is the guy who's getting fewer reps. Then you watch Zach Wilson running the scout team. Like, okay, yeah, he seems like he's earning it. So let's bump him up some more.
This is even where your defensive coaches could come into play and be like, man, Wilson's kind of a problem for us on scout team. Because some of those guys go after it on scout, and some of the starters maybe don't respond. Because like, hey, we're practicing. It's like, no, I'm making you better. The
defensive coaches will probably actually give you the best counsel on that as well, because they'll say, man, like he's not in a bad way, but like they'll say like, he's really challenging our guys. Like they want the scout team quarterback to run the offense that they're going to see on Sunday, but they don't want that quarterback to lay down. They want to be, especially like for the Wednesday practice in particular, they want a challenge on that day.
Right.
So
that's why it's going to be 3, in my opinion. And Wilson could be the number 2 at some point. If that's not week 1, at some point he could be the number 2 because he just offers more. He offers more dynamic ability there.
Yep. Keith checking in. Any possibility we don't have the QB2 on the roster, cut from the team, find a home in Denver? I think that's highly unlikely. I think the QB2 is coming from who and what they've got. Because part of it is they seem to feel really good about Zach Wilson. And I think Sean Payton considers Stiddy a little bit of a security blanket.
Right. I would say the only one I might watch, and they're not going to do it, Mace, but just like if you think of who's like a third guy, Hendon Hooker may not be the second guy. Nate Sudfeld has been out playing him with Detroit. So like there are certain names, but these guys aren't going to get cut. The Lions are likely to keep 3. If Sudfeld's the better guy, and then just keep Hendon Hooker, keep developing him because he missed all last year with the injury. So there's a couple of names, but I just don't think that happens. Quarterback, it's too desperate. Like I said, 60 plus quarterbacks played last year. You need a stockpile, and the Broncos have a stockpile they like.
Yeah. Question from Uncle Charlie: who is the best scout team quarterback in Bronco history?
Recent history, I think it was Chad Kelly.
Yeah, he could spin it.
He could challenge you.
If he had not had the issues that he's still dealing with.
Yes. It's a tragic story, you know.
I believe he'd be an NFL starter.
Oh yeah. Yes, no doubt.
But of course, he recently had the stuff that happened in Toronto, which led to him missing the first half of the season. Like we were talking about the Canadian Football League in practice while we were watching practice day because Chad Kelly was back on the field last night for the Toronto Argonauts
and won a game with a what? A rouge? What'd you call it? What is it?
It's a single, but it's also called a rouge.
A
1 point. A touchback's 1 point in the CFL. So in other words, like if you're in a tie game and you've got a field goal attempt, you can miss it, but if it goes out of the end zone, you win because you got the rouge, 1 point.
What is it with Canada giving up points for ties? They do that in hockey.
Man, Canada's awesome. It's my favorite country.
Why do you get a point for a tie? Why do you get a point for a tie?
Why not?
You tied. You didn't win.
You split the spoils. Like in hockey, you know, like, but that being said, if you play soccer, you get what you get 1 point for a tie, but you get 3 points for a win. So it's like not every game is created equal. So
yeah. Not a fan.
All right. Some good comments today, by the way. We got here Michael checking in. We are next to find out what happened after the third preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals. Broncos country, fasten your seatbelt for an up and down roller coaster ride. Jerry, you don't think someone picks up Zach Wilson after playing most of the game on Sunday? I mean, Sean Payton's been pumping him up and hinting they're setting him up for someone else. I think they are setting him up for someone else next year. I think this is more. Maybe I'll be wrong because if it's the showcase, it's the Albert O thing, and they end up trading him. But Sean Payton keeps talking about all 3 quarterbacks in the room. Like he keeps like saying that kind of off the cuff.
Right.
So I think he's talking about Zach Wilson after the Sam Darnold year that Darnold had with San Francisco. And then, you know, stepping in and being somebody's bridge and playing well, and then getting a bigger deal. So I that's what I think it is. That's my suspicion. I think the showcase players are maybe talking about on Sunday for a potential trade. I think the list starts with Samaje Perine. We were just spitballing today. What about Samaje Perine for another safety?
Sure.
For depth.
Right, because Brandon Jones was out there again today. Again, more just kind of walk through type of day, but he's not doing anything yet. And the regular season, even though it seems like it's forever away, it'll be here before you know it, and you just don't know what you're going to get from Brandon Jones.
Yep, Mike Naylor. Everyone gets a trophy in Canada. Yeah, except the Toronto Maple Leafs. Boom.
There's your
If you know hockey, you get the joke.
Yeah, the rim shot gif again. You got to find
that. Gage checking in. Russ is probably renting in Pittsburgh because someone's Holy Diver said, I wonder if Russell Wilson bought a house in Pittsburgh with 12 bathrooms. Wouldn't it be bonkers if Russell Wilson got cut?
Yeah, it would.
Could you see that happening?
No.
I can't either.
I could see him being really pissed he's the backup, though. He's like Jarrett Stidham accepted the backup spot. Like he's accepted that.
Yeah.
When Russell Wilson gets to the point, and it might be now, of like, hey, you're no longer a starter. What does he do? Take his ball and go home?
Yeah.
I mean, guys like Joe Flacco can play DGAF ball because they just don't care and they're slinging it. I don't see Russell Wilson as that guy.
It's a different mindset to be a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Not now. There are some quarterbacks who were starters who became backups at the end, and they could handle it.
Jim McMahon,
I think Dave Craig, Jim McMahon got another Super Bowl ring out of it because eventually he went to Green Bay. And he was Favre's backup in Super Bowl 31. I mentioned Dave Craig. Brad Johnson was a backup toward the end of his career. Vinny Testaverde was a backup on and off toward the end of his career. Some guys can handle it. Others can't. I think Russell Wilson's probably in the camp that may not be able to handle it.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a starter, so I'm just not going to play football anymore. And that could be it. That could be it. By the way, Kenny Pickett might get cut. So
in Philadelphia?
Yeah, he's not looking too good.
So you're saying opponents against Kenny can pick it?
No, they can pick it all right. It's just he's just afraid to challenge anything.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, part of the reason people got Bo so wrong in the draft is like he challenges you. He can dink and dunk you to death, but you fall asleep or you blitz him and he'll kill you.
Yeah.
That's what he's looking to do.
There are some that are good. There's Russell Wilson can't play dead in a Western.
There's Brian.
Yep. By the way, it says BK is very special. Pittsburgh's O-line is awful. Yeah, it is. It is. But he's contributing to the sacks as well. Like it's one of those things, watching the 3 sacks last year. Little column A, little column B. Wesley saying Pittsburgh may sign Ryan Tannehill. I am really surprised this has not happened already, given the familiarity and comfort that Ryan Tannehill has in Arthur Smith's scheme and that Arthur Smith as a play caller has with Ryan Tannehill. Right. This seems so logical, and I am flabbergasted it hasn't happened yet.
It needs to happen, but here's the problem, and this is why Kenny Pickett asked for a trade. They told Russ he's going to be the starter. That was part of the agreement. Russ strong-armed another team. Like, you only have to pay him $1 million, but he has to be the starter.
Which is why Kenny Pickett got upset about it, had a tantrum, and got traded to Philadelphia.
Yeah. The guy that's Pittsburgh through and through, the Pitt guy, said, out of here.
Said, peace out.
You can't give guys stuff in this league. We talked about it yesterday.
You got to earn it.
Can't give Isaac McKenzie anything. Can't give Montrell Washington anything. You certainly can't give Russell Wilson anything.
Yeah.
And they just did.
Moving away from Russ just for a moment here, who is our starting center? I think it's Wattenberg. I think it's absolutely Luke Wattenberg as a center, based on what we've seen in the games, based on what we've seen in the practices. It's still technically open is the competition, but it doesn't feel that way based on the use of centers so far.
Doesn't it feel like Forsythe is going to be a swing guard?
Maybe. And also the way they're using Alex Palczewski, trying to figure out if he can be that Quinn Bailey super sub who can play everything but center.
Yes.
Although Joe Lombardi was complimentary of Alex Palczewski's work when I asked him about him yesterday. His work at guard. I mean, it's rough. I think you have to grade on a curve because Palczewski's a tackle by trade. It's been ragged watching him at guard the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. it's been ragged for sure.
This Mike Naylor brings this up really quick. Swing tackle. Do you bring one in when other teams make cuts? Because Matt Parrott does not appear to have a good camp so far.
Right. And Frank Crumb's way too raw I don't even know if he makes the practice squad.
I think he makes the practice squad. I think they want to. I think they want to. Yeah, I think you give him a year and you see. Give him a year to incubate. See if he can refine him. Zach Strief's a really good coach. Wouldn't surprise me if he can get something out of him. But yeah, it's been rough. But I'll say I feel like he's gotten better the last couple of weeks. I've seen enough incremental progress in Frank Crum to where I'm fine having him on the practice squad.
It seems like the mental errors are down.
Yes.
I feel the Arizona game it's a big game for a lot of guys. I know that it's not as exciting. Bo's not playing, starter's not playing, but like there's a lot of interesting players that have to play well to secure their future or give better indication of what their future can be.
Yeah. I don't think this is from a Bronco fan, but Andrew Ray saying, I'm happy for Denver fans. Looks like Bo is the real deal. This league is better when Denver is relevant. Best of luck in 2024.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. There are some teams, and stepping away from the orange and blue perspective, but there are some teams where it just makes sense when they're better, right? Like, the league makes sense when the Packers are good. I'm not sure Broncos country wants to hear this, but the league is a little more fun when the Raiders are good.
Yeah, because everyone can
when
hate
the Raiders and Broncos are both good, this league is more fun. Unfortunately, right now you have the Colossus in Kansas City that's kind of messing things up a little bit. They're in their imperial phase, so there's probably a few more
going.
Yeah, there are probably a few more Broncos Raiders games where they're in the back half of the standings. Michael saying Will Sherman was terrible against the Packers. When Sean Payton talks about players on the third team offense kind of letting down the quarterback to where you don't get a good evaluation, he's not saying Will Sherman, but based on what we saw on that safety last Sunday, I think he might as well be talking about Will Sherman, unfortunately.
Yeah. We got some jobs to figure out.
Yes. All right. I like where this show went. A lot of Zach Wilson, but I like getting into the roster like this. We'll hopefully have a chance to do this over the weekend as well. I may do a bonus solo orange and blue today sometime Saturday, so stay tuned. Maybe 10 a.m. Mountain Time, maybe noon. I don't know when it'll be, but I may just come in for 10 or 15 minutes and see who's hanging out.
I like that, Mace.
Now that I know how to work StreamYard.
Mace, running the show today.
Well, that's why I'm looking down a lot as I'm looking at the comments. You got a lot of comments. We got over 1,200 people watching the live stream too. So,
Yep.
Is that good?
Yeah. We'll push for 3,000 sometimes on this show and post game show as well. But so we got Saturday, possible Mace solo show. We have Sunday post game show, and then right back at it Monday, Tuesday.
Are we Deion apologists? I don't think we are, as media critics suggest. I think you are. I think you've worn a Prime sweatshirt.
Oh yeah, I love Deion. I bought his rap album 4 times. It's terrible. It's absolutely awful. But I'm turning on Deion because he turned on Arnie Stapleton, and you just don't do that to Arnie. Arnie's one of the best in the media. The Sean Keeler stuff, I don't know if you've seen what the latest is.
Oh,
He's not allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, and that there's something in Deion Sanders' contract where it's mutually approved media. There's all sorts of stuff. I mean, my comment on Twitter was to make a Simpsons reference, and because there's a long ago episode where Lisa Simpson is given a question to ask Mr. Burns when he's running for governor. And she's like, Mr. Burns, your campaign appears to have the momentum of a runaway freight train. What makes you so popular? That's what the questions of the press conference would be, I think, if Deion Sanders had his way.
He did this at Jackson State too. And the thing is I don't like the direction, even though it's very popular. I don't like the direction of the media and journalists where it's just fanboy media. I have to deal enough with that with Nuggets media. But it's like, I don't like that, so I don't like it. It's not like Sean Keeler was saying anything out of turn, you know. And Arnie Stapleton certainly wasn't saying anything. You know, why'd you bolster your offensive line? Why'd you say bolster? Why don't you say improved? Bolster means improved.
That was uncalled for. Arnie is in our profession. Arnie is the best of us. He's patient. He's an incredibly nice human being.
Yes. Shirt off your back type of guy.
That was hard.
You mess with my friends, Mace, you mess with me.
Yeah, not that I was ever in Deion's corner. I'm still upset about the fact that he bailed on the Braves during the 92 NLCS to go play a football game. Playoff baseball, bigger than regular season football. Sorry, that's true, in my opinion. One's a postseason game, one's regular season. So, yeah, that's how I can't. But I've tried to put that bias aside when talking about Deion Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, like I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Yeah. Heard you and Deion aren't allowed now that you've talked bad about him. Yeah, I get. Oh, well.
Put me on the list.
Although I'll say, with Sean Keeler, who is a friend of mine, I'll admit, the phrase Bruce Lee of BS is objectively hilarious that he used to talk about Deion Sanders.
Right. Yeah, because they listed the terms that he had used, and I was like, none of that is bad. Like, come on. I think he called him like a prophet or something.
Yes. So. False prophet.
False prophet. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I mean, well,
Sean's a good comic book guy too. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not on that beat.
All right, Mace.
Glad we covered pro football. This has been fun.
Yeah.
Let it go, Mace Jermaine. Okay, fine. Although I guess maybe, I don't know. I haven't let go of a bad umpiring game from Eric Gregg and the 97 NLCS Braves versus Marlins. So, you know, some things.
Screw that guy.
Some things just he's passed away now.
Sorry.
I'm sorry for his family and all that, but yeah, that was, to me, the Marlins should never have won a World Series, and I'll leave it at that. So anyway, this has been fun, but we like to keep doing fun shows. We like to do more shows. What we love is for everyone who follows this show, who watches this show, to subscribe and, you know, give a little more there. I'm not very good at this. I can't, you know, I feel like I'm coming across as begging here, but you know, y'all can help us by like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never
miss
vid.
That's right. He's Andrew Mason.
I think our timing was okay on that. I'm not sure.
That's pretty good. It's all right. We'll do in a pinch, man. We'll do in a pinch. It's OBT. We are a BFD. Make sure to stay tuned. We're looking for those potential Saturday show.
Yeah, I'm not committing fully to it yet, but you know.
Right. Yeah, just keep on the lookout. And that's why you subscribe, because then you'll get the notifications if you ring that bell. And then you're like, oh my God, Mace is going live.
Bonus.
So, there you go. Bonus.
Doing it live.
We're doing it live. Speaking of not Arnie Stapletons. Anyway, he's Mace. I'm Cecil. You're running it, Mace. So get ready. OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?